Hey folks, I wanted to share with you my experiences with Twin Galaxies and what my thoughts are on their future. A little about me first. My name's Danny Michael. I hold a few arcade world records and some console world records with Twin Galaxies. I was in the 2012 Guinness Gamers Edition. I've spent a lot of time with them. So much, in fact, I was offered a ref position with Twin Galaxies in the past by Stephen Boyer, who had been working through David Archery at the time to get me brought on the crew. But things had changed with regard to my relationship with him, and so I declined the position once it came approved. So I went to Twin Galaxies in about August of 2010. I saw the King of Kong movie. Now, by no means does this mean that I was new to competitive gaming. I've been more involved in the pro circles and the development circles myself. For example, with Quake and first-person shooters and having clans playing with evil geniuses, and we produced Clan MR, we produced Andrew Ryder, who's a professional gamer, Canadian, and I'd also like to mention that I spent a lot of time with Jason Ely and the Digital Anvil offices in Austin, Texas, jamming games on their T1, which at the time was great. Anyway, so Twin Galaxies was new to me with regard to official world record gaming, but I've been gaming ever since I can remember, and I'm 37 years old now. So my experiences with them, not gaming, but with them, are only a couple of years old. Now, when I went to Twin Galaxies, from my understanding, everything worked pretty well. There was a lot of disgruntled people there, members, but there was plenty of referees, and submissions were getting reviewed and things of this nature. So to me, everything was fine. And then one day, the site, well, not one day, but one time, the site went offline completely, and it was off for several weeks. There was a little message given about that Twin Galaxies would be coming back, this and that, and many weeks went on, and there was a lot of speculation that this was the end of Twin Galaxies, etc. When they came back, they produced a website that was awful, absolutely awful. After which, a lot of the referees, William Williamston and others, I can't remember all of their names now, started to resign. Kelly Fluin either resigned as a senior ref or he was kicked out. I don't really know. There's a lot of secrecy there. But anyway, one by one, the refs started resigning, and submissions were taking longer. Twin Galaxies stopped accepting submissions for certain platforms because they just didn't have the people to cover it. The CEO, I guess, the leader, was David Archery, who was never around and didn't really respond to people until I made this long-winded post on the website about my concerns and voicing my concerns to Stephen Boyer, who I think got it to David Archery, where he made one post with regard to the website and the way things were changing, and just to give them time to get things sorted out. And this is what we were told for, I want to say, about 6 months, where nothing kind of happened except the organization began to deteriorate. And when it did, there were people that were leaving. The site was subject to more downtime. It would just go offline for a few days or a week and come back with no explanation. It was poorly managed. There was very little presence of administration on the website. And so it appeared to be dead. But things still kind of barely worked. You know, there were still world records being set and attention to Donkey Kong once again. And so it still functioned, albeit with a skeleton crew. So many people were very unhappy, including myself, and I was I didn't like the way the organization was being run, but I liked what the organization was. So I was kind of caught between these two sides of fuck these guys, but hey, the project's a good idea. So I found myself at times defending Twin Galaxies, or explaining rather, making excuses for Twin Galaxies to new members about why it was in such disarray, while at the same time kicking and screaming to staff whenever they would listen about the concerns of not just myself but the community in general. And I was able to get a few minor things changed. I was able to get the scoreboard. They wanted to make it where you couldn't link to the scoreboard, so people couldn't show off their scores without having, you couldn't view scores without having an account there. And so to a lot of people this was hard because they couldn't show off their scores to non-members. And so I was able to get that changed. Also, there was a motion to, or the idea to rather make it where you could use an anonymous name or gamer tag in the record in the database, which was also being backed up by Patrick Scott Patterson. And I explained that this stood in the way of transparency and stuff, and my voice was listened to, and they made it where, your real name had to be on there and this and that. So anyway, time went on, and people got angrier and angrier because, as I say, the organization continued to break down. But there were some holdouts, some diehard people that defended everything that Twin Galaxies did, and still 6-7 months later we're being told, give them time, give them time. Patrick Scott Patterson is one of them. He defended the organization to the point where he would even try to use his influence to silence people. And what I mean by that is, well, for example, he told a person one time who had commented that the website was poor quality that he wasn't going to recommend them to be a ref anymore because this guy had insulted the website or the quality of the website. Now, bear in mind, there were very few people posting on Twin Galaxies. Maybe a total regular members, including myself, I'm going to guess about 15 people. And those that were there weren't saying things that were very nice. Now, they weren't being totally rude, but they were giving justified criticisms. And there were people like Patrick Scott Patterson and a few others that were defending the status quo and the way the system was and being told the same excuse, give it time. And for the most part, the user base did give it time. Now, I want to interject with myself here real quick. There's a lot of people with Twin Galaxies that submit scores that don't post. So when I say about the active members, I'm talking about just on the forums. There's a lot of people that don't post that submit scores. There's actually a pretty big community. But those that are vocal and that are involved in and debating or offering ideas is a very small group. So anyway, one day, as this went on, Twin Galaxies, well, first of all, they had been going offline consistently, and there was all this speculation about hacker attacks, and sure enough, somebody got in and posted David Archery's under his account saying that, just terrible things, and then posted his password. And so I actually went in, now that I had his password, and changed his password so that the people who had compromised his account wouldn't be able to use it anymore, which was something Grace on Twin Galaxy said I shouldn't have done, that I overstepped my bounds and whatever. That's not really important. But after which, David Archery resigned after this happened. And so there was no communication with the community about the future of Twin Galaxies at all or what was going on, but people, refs, in their own time and their own volition, were still taking submissions and approving scores and whatnot. I did a little research on who their host was because they seemed to be having really bad hosting issues, and I wanted to try to help. And I couldn't get any really good information. I did find an address, and the interesting thing about this address, it was somewhere in Florida. I don't know it off the top of my head, but this address had been served by the FCC for running an unlicensed FM radio broadcast. So wherever their server, the exact address and unit number that their server, that their host was involved in some kind of illegal activity. So I don't know if that had to do with them going down, but let's just say that their their host wasn't, it was shady. Okay. So anyway, one day it just went offline, like many people had come to expect. People had stopped asking questions when it went offline, and they came back and said Twin Galaxies will be back in 2 to 5 days. Well, later, come to find out, the 1UP in Denver, and I'm in Centennial, Colorado, so Denver's very close. I've heard of this place, I haven't been to it, but I know I've met one of the people that works there, and I'll mention that in a moment, had bought Twin Galaxies. Now, this came as a total surprise to everyone. I mean, even people on the staff that I've talked to had no idea that it was happening. It just basically happened overnight. And today is November, I want to say 17th. I don't really know. But, I'm sorry, today's November 14th. And the site is still down. Now, there was a post on October 17th that had explained that 1UP was working on the new Twin Galaxies and this and that. Okay, and now at PatrickScottPatterson.com there was an announcement about who the new owners were and what was happening, and it was sensationalized and all this, like Patterson does, because he's trying to be a reporter or something. And so that's the information we had. The interesting thing, however, I began to find out little bits of information. The new owners are Richie Knuckles, Jordan Adler, and John Jamshed. Now, I've never met Adler or Knuckles, but I have met Jamshed, and the reason is I bought one of my Neo Geo arcade cabinets off of Craigslist, and I went to this guy's house to pick it up. Now, first of all, this guy's house is full of arcade machines. I mean, he has the most impressive collection I've ever seen. You know, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I don't know how many he had, maybe 100 in his house, and most of them were really nice. This guy had been into arcades. He was a serious collector, and he revealed to me that, you know, he worked at 1UP and that he repaired their machines and maintained their machines. Well, naturally, seeing all of these arcades and me being involved with Twin Galaxies and having arcade records, I inquired. I said, well, what do you think about Twin Galaxies? And he goes, well, I had Steve Wiebe here at my house, he had mentioned. I don't know if he was practicing for Kong Off or what the deal was. This was some time ago, so I can't quote him verbatim. And he goes, and he was a nice guy and this and that. He goes, but the whole Twin Galaxies thing, he says, I just don't understand it, I guess. He goes, it seems silly to me. And I said, oh, okay. He goes, well, first of all, the people over there are kind of assholes. And I can't really disagree with that, but I don't know how he would know it. Second, he says, when you get into competitive gaming, like these guys do, you're really taken away from what that game was meant to be. That's something else, you know. That's not like what I do. So I don't think much of it. That's what he told me. Now, this is one of the new owners of Twin Galaxies. And so, of course, at the time, you know, he didn't know, and I didn't know that he was going to be a part owner there. So now the 1UP is posting, the website's still down, the 1UP is posting that there's going to be new rules and that they're going to continue to track and blah, 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 and etc. Well, here are my reflections on it. Number one, let me just get Patterson out of the way. This guy, I never got along with him. He did a lot of work for Twin Galaxies. He held the place together when it was falling apart, but his personality, is something intolerable. My observation, however, is that he defended the status quo of Twin Galaxies until the very end, until it was handed over to 1UP. And now he's reporting for 1UP and taking pictures with them and things of this nature. So that tells me, first and foremost, one of two things. Either Patterson himself didn't know that the transfer was going to take place, or he knew that it was going to take place and still defended the status quo because the type of job he has, I guess, to be involved or be reporting for someone involves going around and kissing the ass of whoever is in charge. I mean, I guess that's seems to me would be beneficial for the type of work that he does, and I'm glad that I don't do it. But I can understand it. I can understand it. That's one aspect of it, and I'm not ever going back to Twin Galaxies, and now I'm telling you why. But Patterson doesn't define Twin Galaxies. The other reason is that I believe that Twin Galaxies was purchased purely for business financial motivations. There wasn't any shit given about the community at all when the ownership took over. Not by the former staff who knew, because somebody had to know, and not by the new people, because there was no warning, there's been very little update, and there's been no effort at all to keep the community that existed with the website and with the submission process intact. None. So when I put all of this together, somebody who defends the status quo, that defends the new owner, and by the way is now saying that the old ownership was terrible. One of the owners who told me himself very candidly that he doesn't care for competitive gaming, but is in an arcade business. Okay. When I put this together, I see, and the community being basically ignored and, kind of whatever, fuck you kind of thing. We don't care. We don't need you is the impression I get. I could be wrong, but that's the impression I get as a member of that community. Then it seems to me that the only motivation here is financial. And sure enough, the one-up is mentioning that there are going to be select places to be approved for certain record-setting platforms and things of this nature, which I'm sure there's a fee associated with. We'll see. But that's my problem with it. And that's why I'm walking away, because usually when business, whether big or small, gets involved with gaming, it's the community of gamers that end up short end on the stick. Okay? There was, like I say, there's no effort to keep that community together, or the people that have contributed to building that place or being a member of that place, keeping it alive for so many years when it wasn't doing so well. There was absolutely zero regard for them. So the only thing I can think is that they are going to use the Twin Galaxies name in order to profit off of it in some way. Now, will that mean that Twin Galaxies will be worse off than it was? Maybe not. I don't know. But the premise of the organization, as far as I can see, is profit-oriented. It's not gamer-oriented. It's not even gaming-oriented. It's about using the name to make money. Even if I'm wrong, even if I turn out to be wrong on that, I'd still be walking away, because you've got some people in ownership that, apparently don't approve of or don't like competitive gaming or don't understand it. You've got a person being their media outlet who has a raging case of intellectual dishonesty and will just be the yes man for whoever happens to be in charge. And on top of that, you have no regard for the community. So even if I'm wrong about what the motivations are, I know that I'm absolutely right in how I feel about who's running it and what that means for the rest of us. So I just wanted to say that's my prediction, and that's my knowledge of what happened. That's everything that I know about it. There's a lot of speculation going around, and of course this video could be seen as speculation as well. I accept that. But I can't see, like I say, maybe Twin Galaxies will be better, but I can't see myself as a gamer and as an enthusiast really benefiting a whole lot by being involved with them. Not that the old Twin Galaxies benefited me a whole lot. I got my name in a book. And, I got recognition. But there are better things I could be doing. And no matter what it is that I'm doing, if I'm going to do it with other people or among other people, I have to be comfortable with those people. The other reason is the people that I have made friends with on Twin Galaxies will no longer be there when the new ownership is there. So there's really no reason for me to stay, and I don't think anybody will really miss me. That's okay. But you know, to me that is the end of Twin Galaxies. Whether it lives or dies or how well it's run or poorly, to me that's the end of it, and I move on. Maybe I'll be wrong. You know, we'll see. And if I'm wrong, you know, I accept that. But I do know that it's not, my indication is it's not about the gamers. And we as gamers, people who play games, especially people who make games as well, you know, designers, artists, we're about the culture of that, the community of that, and what that brings about. And anytime a business gets involved with that, like I said earlier, consumers get the short end of the stick. You know, whether it be DRM or digital-only downloads, you know, the new Xbox not having a drive, you know, anything that's run for financial interest alone ends up not benefiting the consumer. There has to be people involved at some level that are passionate about the art, about the culture, and about the community. You have to have that. And you can make money off of games, that's fine. But if you are lacking that, which so far Twin Galaxies is, we'll see how the new one launches. But without that, you know, you only have something that's going to benefit that small group of people. And so I wouldn't feel comfortable there, you know. And so that's what I know, and that's what I think, and thank you for watching.